What's up, guys? Coach Gaglione here, and today we're going to go over the case for the commercial gym or the global gym. So as of right now, my goals are kind of shifting towards strict curl training, but I'm also have some other kind of ancillary goals of staying healthy, dropping body fat, and just being more fit, muscular, leaner overall. And we had a new gym at Peak Fitness kind of open up near our place of work where we live, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity for me to kind of jump back in to a commercial gym. So depending on what your goals are, depending on what you're doing, there can be a lot of utility for a commercial gym space. And one of the biggest benefits is that you're going to have access to more variety, but especially some of these kind of bigger machines. So something like a pendulum squat, something like a leg press come to mind. And if you're more physique oriented, you're probably not going to have the ability to kind of use these machines. And not to say that you can't develop a great physique with just a barbell and plates and rack and free weights and dumbbells and things of that nature. But generally what you're going to find as you get older, as you get stronger, the machine work, the cables especially, is just going to be a little bit more easier to recover from. It's going to help kind of enhance what your maximum recoverable volume is and just kind of reduce a lot of joint wear and tear. And also just the addition of variety. One of the biggest benefits and what I've kind of learned using kind of a more West Side or conjugate style system, when you use strategic variety, it's not only going to keep things more novel and interesting and provide different stimulus, but also it's going to provide less wear and tear because you're not kind of repeating the same things over and over and over again. So those are going to be really kind of important things to kind of note. But the pendulum squat's been kind of a staple on my leg focus days. The kind of step back or these kind of one arm machine rows have been a staple in some of my back days. And again, sometimes doing some good combinations of unilateral as well as bilateral training is going to be good just to kind of correct some imbalances. I did kind of mention I'm training for a strict curl meet about 8 weeks out or so at the time of this taping for Mr. America. So the Hampton bar is going to be used for the Mr. America contest, so I'm not really too concerned with doing some of my kind of supplemental exercises like the preacher curls, like the seated curls in my training, and I'm also kind of be using a wider grip just to kind of make it a little bit more challenging and also kind of line up my joints a little bit. Another thing that's going to be important to kind of note when it comes to more hypertrophy based training, and just kind of if you're in the pursuit of size and strength, so whether you're a power lifter, more identify as a bodybuilder, or more physique oriented goals, it is good to kind of, I think, have a good balance of what I would call a Johnny Pencil neck exercise. Something like this, it's a little bit more quote unquote optimal, where things kind of maybe line up a little bit more with the tissues themselves, maybe be a little bit more stretch bias potentially. So kind of a little bit more challenging, more torque in that stretch position. And just what I've kind of found, especially when it comes to something like shoulder and laterals in general, it's going to be generally easier to recover from. And then something like, a machine squat and stuff can be a little bit closer to like a Johnny Horse type exercise. But generally when we talk about Johnny Horse exercises, those are going to be more give you a raw stimulus magnitude. It's going to work more muscle mass through a great range of motion. And there's usually going to be some element of spinal loading. So think like barbell squat, barbell deadlifts are going to give you like a very raw stimulus, especially in terms of neural adaptations and your overall size and strength. So speaking of kind of barbell versus machine alternatives, I think something like a hip thrust is one of those things that really kind of comes to mind, where a barbell hip thrust, while it could be a great tool, a little bit more accessible, it could be very cumbersome to set up. And you can kind of say the same thing for something like a conventional deadlift, but the big downside of like a barbell hip thrust, a lot of times people don't have like a dedicated bench where the benches might be sliding. You have to kind of pull yourself under plates. If you're a bigger guy, it could be really uncomfortable and just overall challenging in general. So something like a dedicated hip thrust machine could also be kind of challenging to fit in like a smaller space or like a garage gym setting. And one of the biggest advantages, I think, again, to not being in your home or not being in your own personal gym, my personal gym happens to be like my place of work. My personal gym happens to be also our family's gym, also our team members' gym, our clients. I'm also thinking about what we need to do in terms of events, what we need to do in terms of improving the facility, what we need to do in terms of improving the training for our athletes, our team members, our clients. So by being able to go to a commercial gym that is not my own, it's not only going to give me a good change of scenery, it's going to allow me to be more present in my workouts, which is going to be really important if you have more intention in your workouts, if you're more focused in your workouts, you're going to get more out of your workouts. One of the downsides of doing a lot of machine-based work is sometimes the machine is not going to fit your body, and you need to kind of fit yourself to the machine. And one of the things that you need to be careful of, especially in this day and age, everyone is really kind of stretch obsessed. They're trying to kind of maximize that range of motion. But you want to use the most effective range of motion. It doesn't necessarily mean always a bigger range of motion. You want to think about, what do you have, what can you own, and then what can you tolerate? How much range of motion do you actually, how much active range of motion do you actually have at each joint? What can you tolerate in terms of the loading protocol within that range of motion? What can you own? What can you control those positions? So those are the things that you want to consider. And sometimes, just because your favorite influencer said that, training at a stretch position is better, or longer range of motion is better, full range of motion is better, you have to kind of understand what the context is. You have to understand your own personal body, your own kind of joint limitations, and also the limitations of the machine, if it may not quite line up with your body, because everyone's proportions and limbs are a little bit different. But I am going to include some Johnny Horse exercises, but probably with a little bit more variety. So you can kind of see I'm doing a seated press here. The advantage of the seated press, you're going to have a little bit more stability versus a standing overhead press, and I'm not going to be able to cheat as much. And that was some of the issues I was having in the last training cycle. So those are just some kind of benefits of why you might want to train at a commercial gym. This also, again, is very close to my work and my home, so that's an added benefit. And I also just want to support local businesses, especially the local gyms that have spaces that can hold events and stuff like that. I think you want to be mindful to make sure you support those businesses, because again, if you don't, then you're not going to have those community events. And it's really important that people have a place to come and interact in person, whether you have a garage gym or not. I think that's important, and that's where kind of space can become a consideration as well. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to see more kind of gym tours and kind of gym reviews and talking more about specific pieces of equipment, let me know. But I hope you're kind of enjoying the series. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon. And remember, support your local gyms.